Let's call this one problematic root causes. Have you ever heard someone say, know your roots? Or claim to know the root of a problem? We're going to learn why the language of roots is socially powerful, but also a little dangerous. I'm Dr. Richard Newton, and I'm here for fruitful conversation on religion, culture, and teaching, and I hope you are too. I actually wrote my dissertation and first book on the idea of roots, but never in a million years would I have said that roots should come with a medical warning. But this week on social media, I saw a post by a physician named Dr. Nisha Patel on why good doctors don't use the language of root causes when talking about disease. Now, I'm not an MD, but I do have a PhD in scriptures and cultural formation, and I can tell you that smart social theorists don't use the language of roots for good reason. Roots are about radical simplification. The word roots comes from the Latin radix, which has to do with base. Think about the way we use the root metaphor when we talk about plants and their roots, or mathematical functions like square roots, or in social systems when we discuss family origins. Roots is all about the essence of the thing to which we claim to pay attention. And that's all well and good because it makes things easy to talk about, but it does make things hard to understand. That's because roots are about radical oversimplification. Now, here's a really easy example to get at that distinction between sort of the necessary generalization we need for concepts to make them make sense and oversimplification that can do a little bit of harm or mystify the thing to which we claim to understand. Carcinogens. Now, popularly speaking, carcinogens are substances that cause cancer. But according to a Mayo Clinic description, carcinogens are better understood as substances associated with the appearance of cancer. Now, why the distinction? Think about it this way. We all know people who make healthy lifestyle choices where they mind what they put in their body and what they surround themselves with, and they steer clear of so-called carcinogens. And yet they end up with cancer and their lives are cut short. We also know people who are serial chain smokers and they will live forever. What's up with that? But medical doctors, from what I understand, want to be more sophisticated, more critical about that which they are saying there is a relationship. So in social theory, we think about this with roots when we think about roots as a discourse. That is, roots as an expression that has effect. It's an idea that moves us. It's a reason why Just Say No is more compelling than a longitudinal study of the correlations between cancer and environmental factors. The latter is a mouthful and too complicated for us to use in everyday speech and just our general day-to-day being. But if we're going to claim to know or understand, we need something that's a little bit sharper, a little bit more critical. Roots language is convenient, even clever, but it's neither comprehensive nor critical. And we need to get curious. We need to ask questions if we want to understand society and the human condition. This is why social theorists try to do what's called redescription when it comes to roots. We want to think about roots in terms of what it says about human beings, what they think is important, and how the language is being deployed to move people towards other positions. So just like medical pathologists don't settle for root causes and ask about the how and why and when and where and what with the relationships between substances and cancer, we social theorists want to understand the human condition in a manner where we're not judging books by their cover and we're not taking people at their word. We want to understand what is going on, what's lurking beneath the surface in our social dynamics. So as a scholar of people, of the human condition, of culture and identity, I am uninterested in regulating the language that people use. I'm not out here saying don't use root language. But what I want to recommend is that if we're going to be a more thoughtful and critical public, then we need to be careful with the language we use to describe ourselves and other people. We need to pause and take note, take stock and inventory of what our language is doing to move people and to make claims. We could all use a little bit more of that in our society, don't you think? That's why roots is powerful, a little bit dangerous, and worth a tad bit of caution. If you want to learn more about roots and the politics of identification, I invite you to check out my book, Identifying Roots, Alex Haley and the Anthropology of Scriptures by Equinox Press. Or you can check out my blog and other social media at sowingtheseed.org, Fruitful Conversations on Religion, Culture, and Teaching. That's where I post all my work, what I'm thinking about, and I hope you'll join me in the conversation there. Until next time.